Good afternoon, and welcome to First Congregational Church, United Church of Christ, right here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. My name is Josh Rumpel, and I'm so honored to be with you all today as we are gathered here in this moment, in this space to grieve as well as to celebrate the life lived by Rosemary Houck. Amidst loved ones all around, we will share in this moment together the love that Rosemary left for each of us. So as we reflect upon the life of Rosemary, let us not balk at the tears, at the laughter, at the grief, at the joy, at our humanity here in this moment. And may we carry with us today and for all days to follow the love that Rosemary had. Let us pray. Loving God, we prepare our spirits for your Spirit to intercede for us with sighs too deep for human words. Bear with us the burden of grief and lead us into the freedom of hope and love. Through our sadness and our joy, may we recognize that you are with us. Fill us with your peace and assurance. Amen. I would now love to invite forward Gentle Fritz, who will be offering a reading at this time.
So after Grandma had passed, Kate and Dad, we were looking through some of her things and they found this letter that she wrote. So these are her words that she sort of wrote to us and the universe, probably anticipating her passing. So I'd like to share it with you because it's just stunningly beautiful. I didn't get to practice, so allow me some guidance here while I stumble a little bit. This was written on April 25th, 2000. This is a statement to any and all who have gathered or who wish to read. I believe that I have coexisted with all beings, human, animal, plant, and mineral. Each one of these have existed for a long time, acting along with their circumstances as they were meant to do. Perhaps I, as a human, have had more choice than some, and I do not claim to have always made the correct one. I do believe in a God, a being who has the ultimate choice, and that ultimate choice is for the best of each. For this, I am thankful. I have tried to love, for I believe that love is more perfect emotion, and that each act of love, at least in spirit, lives on and on. I want each of you to know that I have appreciated being in touch with you in whatever degree our lives have touched, and that all good of my spirit will live on with you. And so I will say goodbye with love, with the hope that God will allow us to meet again. Rosemary. I know her words touch all of us, and her life has definitely touched all of us as she has held and communed and been there and listened and been a wonderful friend and relative to so many of us. And I'm really glad that we all get to gather here together in the spirit of Rosemary's life and to bask in each other's company and the light that she offered to us.
Thank you, Gentle, for sharing the words of Rosemary. You can feel her spirit here with us today. She has not left us. The writer of Ecclesiastes writes, "For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born, and a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill, and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance." My friends, there is a time for everything. Indeed, on a day like today, as we are gathered together to reflect upon the life and the death of Rosemary, We are keenly aware that there is indeed a time to be born and a time to die. When we enter into the world, we do so not by choice. It's not our doing that brings us out of our mother's womb. No, we are guided by the tender hands of someone who cares for us. And after we are born, it is not by our own individual power that our life is sustained. No, we are held, cared for, and nurtured by parents, by a caregiver, by a community. For each of us, our lives are not our own. We belong to and with one another. Rosemary belonged to us, and we belonged to her. She left an indelible mark upon you, whether you are family, a friend, a child, a grandchild, a neighbor, or whoever else you may be. Rosemary was born, and thus Rosemary lived. And because she lived, some part of her, no matter how small, lives on in each of us. There's a time to be born and a time to die. There's a time coming for every person here to depart from this world. We know not when that day will be. And that can be a scary thought, but I also think it can be a beautiful thought. Because the reminder of the impermanence of life adds a weight to each of our days. We must seize the day, squeezing out of each hour the fullness of life. Rosemary did so by loving her family, by reading a lot and many different things. She continually learned, continually asked questions. She traveled the world. She did a million different things to squeeze out of life everything that she could. So let this be a moment, a reminder to each of us to live a life fully alive, to recognize that there is a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. And we must grasp every moment for what it is. It's a time to live. And one day when it is our time to die, I hope that each of us can look back and say that we indeed lived. So let us love one another fully and without condition. We have been loved into being by 1,000 different people, those who are gone and those who yet remain with us. Let us be thankful for the love that each of us has received from each other and from Rosemary. I can imagine, although she gave so much of herself, that she would recognize how much that she received in return from each of you. So on her behalf, I want to thank you for the love that you reciprocated. As you move forward into the rest of your life's journey, may Rosemary's love and spirit be like a stone dropped in a pond, its ripples echoing out into eternity. Each of us isn't here by accident, but by the love of those who have surrounded us, have created us, have nurtured us, have sustained us. We stand upon the shoulders of those who have come before us, able to reach ever higher because of them. We've been surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses to whom which Rosemary now belongs. All those who have gone before us have not faded into nothing. They live on in us, in our words, in our actions, and in our love. The lives they lived call us into our own, birthing within us the courage to carry on. We, those who remain, carry them with us. So may their lives be a legacy lived on in us. Amen. Thank you, David. This time there will be 3 people who will be offering words of remembrance, memories, stories shared of Rosemary's life. That is Kate, Georgia, then Mike. Kate, I invite you up.
Hi, I'm Kate, in case somebody's here that doesn't know me. And this was a bad time for me to start right after that song, because that always chokes me up anyway. So, anyway. Good afternoon to friends and family, and thank you for coming today. Today we gather not just to mourn, but to celebrate the impact that Mom had on our lives. As we reflect on her life, let us find some solace in the memories that we shared with her, the laughter that we had with her, and the lessons we learned together with her. I have so many lessons. I wanted to make a list of lessons that I learned from my mom, so you could understand that that caused me to be the way that I am, if you have objections to that. I hope that these are her very basic beliefs and values that she taught me. They have served me well in my life, and when I chose to adhere to those lessons. They also put me back on track when I got lost. So, the first one is do not lie. Do not lie. There we go. Lying may not save you from the circumstances or consequences of your behavior, she would tell me, but it will make your behavior feel less painful. There are always consequences to our actions, both desirable and some not desirable, and most of the time they're a mixture of those. Her second one was think through your choices before you make a decision. When I was counseling soldiers, they thought they had to do this or this. And there are so many more choices available to you if you think through them a little bit. And so you can craft those consequences and choices. The next one was, this is one that I really didn't always like very well, but in retrospect it was true. She told me, you are minimally responsible for 50% of everything you're involved in. So when I tried to blame other people, I didn't get away with that. I only got away with 50% of that. She always said that that was true. Ponder your mistakes. We all make mistakes. Own up to them and be truthful to yourself and to others, and you'll be okay. Next one was, don't be too hard on yourself. Sometimes we think we have to be something and act like something, and we don't. We have to be and act who we are. The next one was, a real friend does you the greatest service when they tell you the truth. Sometimes that truth is hard to hear, and sometimes that truth is hard to say. Another big one was never lose your sense of humor. Don't take yourself too serious. Find the humor in you, find the humor in people, and you draw those connections. So getting down to the bottom here of these is don't hit your brother. I really hated that one. And in the end, remember, all of you must remember that the only reason we're here is because it's all about the dog. Pretty good rules, I think, to live by. I've been happy with them and how they changed my life. I do have two true stories, in case you think I just made this up. I do have two true stories about, and it shows you how growing up with Mom changed and shaped me. One was, I was no more than 7. And when I came home from school every day, I passed by this woman's yard, and she had these beautiful flowers almost all the time. And this was in Cheyenne, Wyoming, so there wasn't a lot of flowers in Cheyenne. So I started picking them because they were pretty, and sometimes I kept them, and sometimes I gave them to Mom. And eventually, the flower lady realized who was picking her flowers, and she wasn't very happy about that. So she found my mother and told her. And Mom said, look, she gave me the look, I should say. When your mom gives you that look like, oh no, I'm in trouble. So she said, you gotta stop. These are not your flowers to pick. I don't care how pretty you think they are not your flowers. You cannot just take them. But as she was telling me this, she said, I want you to know that in the mail today came this doll that we had sent away from a cereal box, I think it was. And I've been waiting for this doll and waiting. And she said, today it came. And I was like, oh, great. And then she says, but here's the deal. You can wait another week for this doll, and then get it. Or you can take a spanking for keeping to pick those flowers when I told you not to, and then you can get the doll tonight. And I was totally in anguish. I was just, oh, how can't make this decision? I cannot. How could she do that to me, make this decision? It was just horrible. So I said, okay, so let me get this straight. So if I do this, this happens, and if I do this, that happens. And she said, that's right. So guess what I did? It didn't really hurt. And I got my doll. The second story, I think, shows about loyalty, reason, and logic that she tried to show me all the time. In junior high class one day, this teacher that I had, my hair was in my eyes and it was bugging me, and I took out my brush and went, right? And she came down quite harshly on me for that behavior in class. She said, you are not allowed to do personal grooming in a classroom. Put that away. I never want to see that again. And she kind of railed on me for a little bit. I don't remember what else because I got into shock. But I was like, okay, all right, well, maybe I'm thinking to myself. Okay. So 2 minutes later, she goes to her desk and she pulls out some hand cream and she starts putting hand cream on. And I stood up and I said, teacher, I don't know what her name was now, teacher, how is it that I am in such trouble for performing a transgression of doing grooming in the classroom, and that's what you just did? Well, you know, that didn't go over very well. So she put me in the hall and called my mom, and we went to the principal's office together. She gave me to the principal, and as I sat there, I was kind of like, I still don't really understand why, I really still don't understand that. Was that not the same? Should I have not said anything? Well, I could not say anything, but that's not me. I say things. So she came in, and the principal, you know, mom said, what happened? The principal told her, and she looked at me and she said, what happened? And I told her pretty much exactly the thing that I just told you. I didn't lie because, you know, mom was really against that. So I told her exactly. I said, maybe I shouldn't have stood up. And so she looked at the principal and she said, I will not be punishing my daughter. And so he was like, you know, he expected me to get into big trouble. And she said, let's go. And I said, right on, Mom. So we left, and I was kind of glad to get home. I was like, yay, I got home. Mom stood up for me. I'm okay. And then she said, let's have a talk about what happened today. And I was like, oh, no. So she wasn't done with me by a long shot. And we talked about how I had made that choice and how I could have chosen other things, and how if I had chosen other things, would an outcome have been different, and made me go through all of that. So I didn't get off scot-free. But in public, my mom was behind me. And we kept what we talked about and how we resolved that between us. And so I really respected her for that in many ways. So this gives you some insight into the childhood that I had. And I have many more stories, but those were ones that when I think of a story about Mom, those like, right, come into my face. I will deeply miss her guidance, her strong sense of humor, and her patience with me. We had many times of disagreements and arguments, many, many. But she never subjected me, she always allowed me to question, well, why is that? And how come this is? And we didn't always have the answer, and we didn't always get along. But I really can't remember those as stories right now like I could the other ones. So they didn't mean very much in the end. Mom leaves behind a legacy, I think. She was very compassionate. I wish I had a little more of that. Sometimes I think no, not sometimes, that's soft-selling it. I wish I had more of that. I do. And so my tribute and my legacy to her is that I'm going to learn to do that a little bit better. Like I said, thank you for coming today to honor her. I hope you can draw strength from some of these words that I said and my cherished memories of her and her life that we hold dear.
I got delegated to speak for 3 people. First from Paul, who's in Missouri and couldn't make it. Paul said he's here in spirit, and he says that Rosemary was very special to him. He says that she was like a second mother for him, and that he always enjoyed her company whenever he saw her, and she was full of life and light. And then this is from John, who's sitting in the back. Since it's all about the dog, he's sitting with our dog in the back, Galen. This is from John. About 50 years ago, a young man with brown hair often came down to Colorado Springs and talked late into the evening with Rosemary. Sometimes he brought slides of his trips to the mountains or even Canada. Those were good years. Rosemary touched a lot of lives in a positive way. And then this one is it's from me. Okay, she was my best friend for 51 years. She's my great aunt-in-law. I have so many precious memories of Rosemary and all our times together in the last 51 years. All our talks, hanging out in nature on our walks and drives, our trips and vacations, sometimes with just the 2 of us, and sometimes with Gentle and Benjamin when they were kids. A side note on that one, when Gentle was 9 and Benjamin was 2, we got stuck in North Platte, Nebraska during a spring break blizzard, the 4 of us in a motel room for a couple of days. Finally, we got on the highway with all the truckers. I liked to save things for later, so I put some unfinished French fries in the glove compartment. About 5 years later, riding with Rosemary, they were still there, hard as rocks. Some other memories: Monarch Pass in the moonlight at midnight with all the snow puffs on the evergreen trees. Sharing plants, flowers, books, food, games, and ideas. Rosemary's love and care for our son Benjamin. All the warm times around the kitchen table. That time in November one year at dusk when the ice on the lake was tinkling like bells. Rosemary has always been a shining example of caring, generosity, and a positive outlook. She loved God's creation, all the animals, trees, flowers, rocks, and mountains, landscapes, scenery, weathers, and the cosmos. Her continuous curiosity about everything was an inspiration. On the morning that Rosemary crossed over to the other side, looking south from Denver, there was a rosy glow over Colorado Springs at sunrise. And later that afternoon, looking south from our hill, there was blue sky all around Pikes Peak, and the wind was blowing the snow off of it, creating a snowy aura. Recently, I had a dream about Rosemary. We were looking deep into each other's eyes and talking, and I gently touched her cheek, and there were no wrinkles.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming here, celebrating my mother's life. I know that her life has touched all of us in one way or another, and certainly other than the gift of life, of course, there were a number of things that she taught me that I thought were worthwhile. One of those was the truth. There are absolute truths, not always relative. There are absolutes, and she was big on that. In addition to the truth, she always wanted complete explanations, which has led me to be pretty gregarious throughout my entire life. Another thing that she taught me was loyalty. Be loyal to your family and your friends. And I've tried to adhere to that, and folks have never let me down. Also, the other thing was, it's been touched on a couple of times, was a sense of humor. Maintain a sense of humor about yourself and the world. However, there were transgressions that she made. There was an incident one time in which it was a fishing trip that we were on with Dad, and he was off fishing along the stream. Mom had spread out a blanket and was in the sun and was reading, and I was off exploring. Anyway, so the incident I referred to involved me showing her a snake that I found. So I displayed this snake to her. I was 12 years old. I decided that if I wanted to live to be 13, I wouldn't show her any more snakes. I'll tell you that. So she didn't seem to have a sense of humor about snakes. Mom did, as was pointed out, she did enjoy traveling. And thanks to my sister Kate and myself, she was able to go to a lot of places, exotic, some of them, both domestic and abroad. Those included taking my daughter to her hometown during spring break, and so my daughter had an opportunity to spend that time with her, and Georgia as well, even in the snowstorms. And so she got to see a little bit of where Mom lived and where she grew up. Another one was Mom and I had traveled to Bandelier National Monument and saw the ruins of the indigenous people that lived there. And also she and I made a trip to Ohio, a discovery trip to find the origins of our family and where they had been. And that was largely successful. And also we went to Hawaii with my wife June, my sister Kate. We had a great time. We rode helicopters, saw volcanoes, and attended a luau. Mom, in addition to traveling, Mom and I shared many breakfasts together. Sometimes I'd take her to doctor's appointments, or sometimes just for grins we'd go, and we'd have pancakes. She loved pancakes, and we'd have long philosophical conversations. So I think both of us treasured those moments together, and we found them both very worthwhile. One of the things that she particularly liked was, on occasions, I would make crepes for the family, and we'd all get together, those crepes that have strawberries and bananas and apples and whipped cream, and a good time to be had by all. But she treasured those times that we spent together. In the end, Mom knew that her time was growing short. We had talked about that. She'd asked about the COPD, whether it was going to be the thing that ended her life, and I told her that, in all honesty, probably would be. And her reaction to that, after thinking a little bit, she goes, "Well, I guess there won't be any more pancakes, huh?" I said, "Yeah, Mom, probably no more pancakes." But at almost 94 years old, Rosemary had lived what was considered to be a long life. In her accumulated wisdom, I'm sure she would counsel us to enjoy our lives, be kind to one another, and maintain a sense of humor. So, that's it. I hope that you all enjoyed her as much as I did.
Thank you so much for being here today, sharing the stories, passing on the love, life, and legacy of Rosemary Houck. As we end today's service, let it not be the end of our love, nor the end of our storytelling. You'll be invited to a small reception over here in this next room, where there'll be food and drinks, as well as plenty of space to tell your own stories with one another. In my conversation with Kate and Mike a couple of weeks ago, we just told a lot of stories there. Well, they shared a lot of stories. about the life of their mother, and shared one of her favorite places that she traveled to was Ireland and Scotland. So I figured today we would close with a traditional Celtic blessing. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face, the rain fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of God's hand. Amen.